Okay, I want to talk about the uh, possible project I'm looking at of uh, coupling two of these TC electronic third dimension pedals into a single actual dimension chorus, since the TC unit has got only half of the components necessary to be an actual dimension chorus. It's got one clock generator and one bucket brigade device. And to be an actual dimension chorus, it would have to have two driven by antiphase LFOs. So, which is just weird because other than that, it's clearly a more or less direct copy of the Boss SD2 dimension chorus, the dimension C. And why they chose to leave out the other chips and just not go all the way, I don't quite understand. But anyway, I've already ranted excessively about that, I'm sure. Taking a look at the schematic here, though, it turns out that there is very handily an extra op-amp section here available on the board itself. There's two dual op-amps, which are here and here, IC5 and IC6. And then IC1 up here is a quad op-amp, but only 3 of the 4 sections are used. The 4th section is simply wired as a voltage follower attached to the midpoint voltage, because this op-amp is running on 9 volts. So this op-amp section is available to be used as an inverting gain of 1 stage to produce the antiphase LFO to go over to the other TC electronic unit if I was to buy another one and connect them up like this. The modifications would be rather straightforward. I'd be looking at taking the LFO signal from this point right here, pin 1 on IC5, and inverting it using this op-amp section, and then running it over to the other TC unit and inserting it right at this same point on the other unit, and cutting the internal connection there and running the external LFO signal, inverted LFO signal from the from what we'll call unit 1. So unit 1 would have the inverter, and unit 2 would receive that signal instead of using its own internal LFO. Therefore, both of the units would be running off of the LFO in unit 1, but unit 1 itself would be getting the normal LFO signal, and unit 2 would be getting the inverted LFO signal. So what I'd have to do to actually use this op-amp that way would be to cut the this wire connection between pin 2 and 3 and put a 47K resistor instead, because that's what Boss used, and then put a 47K resistor on the inverting input and run that over to this point on unit 1. So between IC1 and IC5. However, unfortunately, this midpoint voltage is not going to work. I'll have to cut that connection as well and run a wire over to the 2.8 volts. See, there's 2 different rail voltages used for op-amps. This one happens to be running on 9 volts. This one is running on 5.6 volts, a regulated voltage. So the midpoint voltage for this is 2.8 volts. So I'd have to run that over to this in order to get the bias of the inverting op-amp to be correct. So that would be a little extra complication, but overall it wouldn't be bad. They're all surface mount components, but it'll be pretty accessible. This is a IC1, here's pin 1, 2, 3, and you can actually see, if I can zoom this thing correctly, that the connection there between pin 1 and 2 is visible. It's right on the top of this multi-layer board conveniently, so that would be easy to cut, and then just carefully solder some extending wires and run it to the two 47K resistors. And then pin 3 here, which is connecting to the 4.5 volt signal, that's on a layer underneath. I can't see where that goes, so I'd have to actually desolder that pin and bend it up and solder a wire to it to run over to the correct points on IC5, which is, where am I here? Right over here, IC5, there's pin 1, 2, 3 of that. So pin 1 would be my signal into the 47K and the inverting gain of 1. And then pin 3 is one place where I could pick up the 2.8 volt bias signal. There's other places on the board, but I might as well get it from right there. And that would do it. And then pin 1 of this chip would also go to a wire that went off board over to the unit 2 TC chorus to drive its LFO signal instead of its internal LFO. And that would then produce an actual fully stereo dimension chorus unit, which this thing never even tried to be. And if I wanted, as I would want, to be able to put the chorus into mono, I'd have to have some other switching capability on the jacks in order to run the signal from the input of unit 1 over to the input on unit 2 instead of coming from its own jack. That would be just right here, but that could be done externally to everything but the jack. I wouldn't have to take any signals from inside the circuit, so to speak. It could just be done right here, tie the two inputs together, and I think that would work fine. And then on the output, kind of the same thing. I don't know, but I believe simply tying these two outputs to one output jack, driving through the 1K resistor. Hopefully these are nice, robust, solid-state op-amps, and that would work without any further trickery to make a mono output. And then I could just have a toggle switch, DP/DT toggle switch that did that to put it into mono. As far as bypass, I'd have to use two DP/DT relays to bypass both units correctly, and I would want to be able to do that. So I'd have to have an external circuit board with some relays and a drive transistor on it to affect the bypass effect. So there would be some additional wiring, but it wouldn't be very fussy, getting into the surface mount stuff and all. It would just be dealing with connections to the signal jacks, and then the only serious onboard surgery would be hooking up these LFOs, and that would produce a dimension effect. The only question is if the audio quality of these TC electronic units is good enough that I could even live with that, or if I'd still hear the bad quality even though it was now a dimension effect. It might be a bad dimension effect. And so I'm left to wonder and ponder that. It would cost another $40 to buy another of these things and actually hook all that up and try it, plus the cost of a 1U rack case, which is what I'd want to put it all in, if it was successful, I'd hook it up first and see if it was going to work. But if it worked, I'd stick it in a rack case and be happy, or maybe not. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I have to listen to some more of these internet videos of the Klark Teknik unit, which is the other thing I'm considering purchasing, and see if that thing is really significantly better in audio quality, which it probably is because it uses better compounders, and I'm convinced that's where the distortion is coming from on this thing. So, yep, just got to ponder it. But anyway, that's how one would connect two of these together to get a dimension effect. And we'll see whether I end up doing that or not. Okay, that's all for now. Boop.